Have you ever stopped to wonder how your favorite websites, the ones you use every single day, actually stay safe? Well, it's not magic. It's really more like a digital detective story. See, to catch a hacker, you kind of have to think like one. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the world of penetration testing, where these experts, these digital detectives, find a website's hidden weaknesses, all to make it stronger in the end.
So, that brings us to the big question, right? How do these digital detectives get inside a system's head? How do they figure out its secrets? That's the absolute key. Because to protect a system, you have to know it better than anyone who might be trying to break in. Let's figure out how they pull it off.
All right, here's our roadmap for this whole journey. We're going to follow a professional pen tester step by step. We'll start with the basics, then we'll do some reconnaissance, case the joint. After that, we'll find the flaws, try to bypass the locks, and finally, see what the detective's all-important final report has to say.
Okay, before our detective can even think about starting their investigation, we've got to learn to speak the language. So, first up, we're laying the groundwork, making sure we've got the core concepts of cybersecurity down cold. The OWASP testing guide gives us these 3 key terms, and they're super important. So, think of it this way. A vulnerability is like a tiny crack in a knight's armor. A threat? That's the mace that's aimed right at that crack. And a test is actually swinging the mace to see if the armor holds up. Simple, right? Let's keep these in mind as we go. And now let's get into Act 1 of our detective story, reconnaissance. This is the stakeout. Our detective is gathering all the clues they can about the target, but here's the catch. They have to do it without tripping any alarms. It's all about quiet, careful observation. You know how a crime scene investigator dusts for actual fingerprints? Well, a pen tester does something similar. They start by fingerprinting the website. They're on the hunt for any digital clues that reveal what's running the show behind the scenes. The web server, the frameworks, maybe even the operating system. And this is one of the ways they do it. A tool, like HTTPrint here, sends out some requests and then carefully analyzes the replies that come back. You see, different web servers, like Apache or Microsoft's IIS, have their own little unique quirks in how they respond. And those quirks? Those are the digital fingerprints that totally give them away.
It's not all about actively poking the system, though. These detectives also use public intelligence. This Netcraft report, for instance, is basically a background check for a website. It can tell you its IP address, who's hosting it, and even what web servers it's used in the past. It's all about building a super detailed profile of the target.
So once they have a good idea of the technology involved, they start looking for doors. And I don't just mean the front door everyone uses. They're looking for hidden side entrances, forgotten back doors. And to do that, they use a technique called door busting, which is basically just a fancy word for trying to guess common file and directory names to see what opens.
Let me show you how it works. So the tool requests common WordPress folders like WP admin. The server's response codes totally tell the story. A 403 forbidden, that means the folder exists, but we're not allowed in. A 302 found means it's there and it's redirecting us. And a 200 OK means we hit a public folder. Bingo! Just like that, we can be pretty sure we're dealing with a WordPress site.
All right, on to the next phase. Our detective has cased the joint, they know the layout pretty well. Now it's time to start jiggling the windows, testing the weak spots, and seeing what gives. One of the most common flaws you'll see is something called cross-site scripting, or XSS for short. Now with this one, the hacker isn't attacking the site directly. Instead, they're using the website as a launch pad to attack its users. They inject a little bit of malicious code into the site, which then gets delivered straight to other users' browsers. Check this out. See how the URL itself actually contains a script tag? A vulnerable website will just take that part of the URL and display it without cleaning it up first. The user's browser sees that script, thinks it's a legitimate part of the page, and just runs it. In this case, it changes a link, but it could just as easily steal a user's login information. Okay, next up is cross-site request forgery, or CSRF. And this one is even sneakier. An attacker tricks your browser while you're logged into a website into sending a request to perform some kind of action, like changing your email address or deleting your account, all without you having any idea it's happening.
This diagram really breaks it down. So the victim is logged into their bank, and their browser has that valid session cookie. Then they visit some other malicious site. That site has hidden code that tells their browser to send a request to the bank's website, say to transfer money. The browser helpfully includes the session cookie, the bank thinks the request is legit, and poof, the action is performed.
So, exploiting a website's trust in a user is one thing, but what about just picking the locks on the front door itself? Now we're going for the crown jewels, the digital locks and keys that protect all our accounts and sensitive data. This is all about testing authentication and authorization. A real classic test is called directory traversal. A tester looks for any part of a site that loads files using a URL parameter, just like you see here. Then they try to trick it. Those .. characters basically mean go up one directory, so by stringing a few of them together, they can try to traverse their way out of the main web folder and get access to really sensitive system files.
Okay, this one is pretty wild, an authentication bypass. So normally you send a username and a password hash, but some older code has this really critical flaw. It's like a faulty lock that's supposed to need a specific, complex key, but if you jiggle a paperclip in there just right, the code messes up and thinks, yep, that's a key, and just opens. Here, by sending this specially crafted value that the code accidentally interprets as true, the entire password check is just skipped. The system lets you write in, no password needed.
So, our detective has cased the joint, found the flaws, and even bypassed the locks. But the job is not done. Not by a long shot, because the most important part is the debrief. The entire point of this whole exercise is to create a clear blueprint for fixing all the problems they found.
And this right here is that blueprint. The final report is, without a doubt, the most critical part of the entire process. It's not just a list of what's broken. A good report details every single vulnerability, explains the actual business risk, like what could this cost us, and gives developers crystal clear steps on how to fix it. This is what turns a simulated break-in into a genuinely constructive security exercise. This quote from the OWASP guide makes such a crucial point. Security isn't just about writing perfect code, it's also about having good processes. A really common habit, like a developer quickly editing a file on a live server, can accidentally leave behind backup files, and an attacker can find those files and pick them apart for weaknesses. It just goes to show you, good security is all about good habits.
And that kind of brings us to our final thought. A penetration test is incredibly powerful, but you have to remember, it's just a snapshot in time. The very next day, new code gets written, new servers are set up, and you can bet new threats are emerging. So the real takeaway here is that security is a continuous process, not a one-and-done fix. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What might have been missed on the apps you use every single day?